Singapore's justice system draws global admiration for a blend of efficiency, integrity, and predictability, qualities that many jurisdictions struggle to balance. And the reasons are not far. Singapore ranks very high out of 142 countries in the World Justice Project Rule of Law Index. It ranks fourth in East Asia and the Pacific. Its legal system is known for low corruption levels, strong enforcement, and judicial independence. The courts are respected for impartiality and professionalism. So, as Ghana is in Singapore seeking and exploring business and health, we want to understand the system there and what we can learn from that system. Welcome to the law. This is your legal light. It is your health law. I'm Samson, Lardy, Anyenini. I'll be right back to introduce my guests, formidable lawyers right in the Garden City of Singapore. You're welcome back. This is the law. It's your legal light. It is your health law. And I'm very privileged to be joined this afternoon for this edition by Shem Ko, who is Managing Director, Focus Law Asia, Aloysius Go, who is founder, Sage Mediation, and Kohi Hassan, who is co-founder and CEO, M Capital Asia, and she's also the Honorary Consul for Ghana in Singapore. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It's 10 p.m. where you are, but good afternoon from Ghana.
A very good afternoon, Samson, and everyone in Ghana.
Thank you very much, and we do appreciate your time this afternoon. And I'd like to begin straight with Shem. So the Singapore judicial system is a fascinating one, and many people are just in love with it. Globally, it attracts such admiration. Let's begin on a rather lighter note. Why is it that in Singapore you don't want to use the wig and you don't want to call the judges my lord, as we do here in Ghana?
Well, this happened a bit before my time. So Singapore abolished the use of wigs and formal archaic titles such as my lord or your lordship at the start of the 1990s. This was something that our then Chief Justice, Justice Yong Bang Hao, this was a drive, this was an initiative driven by him. And I think that the reason was that, these were symbols of a colonial tradition, the wigs, the ornate collars, archaic terms of address. And the thinking was that it was out of place in an independent, pragmatic Singapore. And also, you must understand, in our tropical climate, it was really uncomfortable to be all dressed up and, wearing wigs and high collars. So, it was a move that I think was certainly welcomed by many lawyers. And I think also a move that was consistent with a young nation becoming confident in its own ways and comfortable in its own skin.
Right. Would you say that this change, doing away with the wig, doing away with the use of my lord and so on as address for judges, has affected the formality or dignity of court proceedings in any way?
Oh, no, not at all. Singapore courts remain a highly disciplined organization, and the change, I would say, was only in an outward form. The courts are seen as more approachable and culturally relevant, while at the same time maintaining the seriousness, the structure, the decorum expected of a world-class judiciary. And I think many would also say that the dignity of the court now comes from the conduct of the judges and the conduct of the lawyers and the integrity of the legal system, not from wigs or archaic phrases.
Right. I'd like to quickly bring in Aloysius and Kohei, just very brief comments. Generally, what would you say is the attraction globally for the Singapore judicial system, justice system?
I'm going to go first, Kohi.
Yes, Aloysius, you can start.
Okay. So good afternoon again to everyone. And I think having been invited to speak as a mediator, my comments come from that angle, right? What has been very, very attractive for Singapore as an international jurisdiction is that we have put in a lot of effort to create a multi-door system. I think our justice system has truly shown to the world that justice is not only accessible through the courts. That it is not a unidimensional concept. I think our current Chief Justice Sundaresh Menon is a man who is really supportive of social justice and administrative justice, because it's that Singaporeans, I mean, I know we're famous for our efficiency to a fault, but we are a strong believer that justice delayed is often justice denied.
Right.
And to that end, I think this is why, apart from having very, very strong jurisprudence put out by our courts, we've also invested in ADR, in our arbitration center, as well as building an amazing mediation ecosystem over the period of 30 years, so that everyone knows that when they have a dispute, they will be able to turn to our justice system for a way to get a fair, practical, just outcome.
Great. And Kohei, you have been in practice for a while, also in Singapore. Now, what for you, from where you sit now and from where you operate, trying to draw, investments into that country, and from that country and Asia into Ghana, what is it about your system that draws many people to it?
I think, there are a lot of similarities, if I may say, between the Ghanaian legal system and the Singapore legal system, both being heavily influenced by the UK legal system. The Singapore legal system, you've got your court proceedings, you've also got your alternative dispute resolution, which includes mediation, as Aloysius mentioned earlier, have seen users across all of Asia. So whether they come from a similar Commonwealth background, like for instance Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, or more civil law system, like you've got China, Korea, Indonesia, they've all been important users of the Singapore court system or the Singapore dispute resolution system over the years. And such similarities, I would say, is also very much seen in Ghana. The other and equally important factor, if I may emphasize, is the observance of the rule of law. And Samson, as you rightly commented at the very outset, Singapore ranks favorably. We are 16th, I think, in the Rule of Law Justice Index. And multiple factors go towards that. You've got factors like our low corruption levels, strong and consistent application of judgments, and essentially judicial independence. And Ghana, to a very large extent, where within West Africa, has got a similar reputation, if I may say, being a robust legal system where both procedural as well as substantive law are very much followed.
Right. So let me stay a while longer with Shem so that we get to appreciate, the basics in the court system in Singapore. And so now, Shem, here in Ghana, when we say the Supreme Court, it is the apex court. It is the policy court, with cases moving up from the district, circuit, high court, and appeals court. It appears in Singapore, when we say the Supreme Court, it's a different situation. Educate us. Please unmute your mic.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
In Singapore, when we refer to the Supreme Court, we refer to effectively the entire court system. And like Ghana, there's a structured hierarchy in the Singapore court system. So the Supreme Court, we refer to the state courts, the High Court, and the Court of Appeal. And the High Court itself is split into two divisions. We have the General Division, that's where the courts would listen or deal with the trials. And we have the Appellate Division, which is also part of the High Court.
If I may follow up on that, what challenges or advantages do you see in that model compared to other common law jurisdictions? Because at your place in Singapore, the Court of Appeal is the final court. Here, the Supreme Court is a final. In your place, the Supreme Court includes the Court of Appeal and High Court.
Well, in my view, the structure of one judiciary compared to another, structure alone does not really provide real advantages, in my view. But I think that the biggest advantage that the Singapore model has, it's in its balance of efficiency, integrity, and international credibility. So Singapore combines the best of the common law tradition. We have a strong case precedent, procedural fairness, with a highly modern and responsive court system. We have a judiciary that is widely regarded as independent, as corruption-free, and that is commercially sophisticated. So cases move along quickly, heard by judges who are very, very well trained, very well trained legally, who have a great appreciation of commerce, and the court judgments issued by the Singapore courts are respected globally. So I think compared to many of the other common law jurisdictions, Singapore courts offer certainty, offer speed, offer neutrality, which is why international businesses and foreign parties often choose Singapore for dispute resolution, even though they have no connection to it.
Yes, and we will get to that part as well, because there's some very, great news as far as international arbitration, and Aloysius will come in with the mediation aspect of it as well. But there are lawyers, there are judges who are watching and listening to us this very moment. Can you help us understand which bodies are responsible for leading criminal prosecutions, and are cases heard by jury or sole judges? Why?
In Singapore, criminal prosecutions are driven or led by the Attorney General's chambers. So that is the independent body that prosecutes crime. And unlike many other common law jurisdictions, all proceedings are heard before a judge, not the jury.
So, yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry. As to why, I think there is a great acceptance in Singapore that legal matters need to be tried by legal experts, and that's one. And also, it needs to be tried by a person who is trusted to be fair. So that I feel is a great advantage that a judge-led system has over a jury-led trial.
On average, the turnaround time for cases, how long does it take to resolve a typical criminal case or a commercial dispute in Singapore?
Well, I'm not a criminal lawyer. I'm a commercial lawyer, but I would say that so let me talk about commercial matters first. I think for reasonably complex commercial dispute, when one presses the button and starts legal proceedings in the High Court, one would expect it to be heard and have a judgment delivered within 18 to 24 months.
Right. Now, talking earlier about, the broad acceptance of court decisions or the confidence in the judiciary, Shem, are you able to share an example of a landmark case that shaped public perception of the courts in Singapore?
Well, if I could mention a fairly recent high-profile case, I would refer to the case of Party Liani. And this was a case that involved a foreign domestic worker from Indonesia who was accused of theft by her employer. Her employer came from prominent family, shall I say, in Singapore. And obviously for the accused, she was a domestic helper. So you could say someone from who didn't have much financial means, and a foreigner. So Party was convicted at the state court level, but she appealed. And the High Court overturned the conviction, finding that there were serious inconsistencies in the evidence and that she may have been wrongfully accused after expressing an intention to lodge complaints against her employer. So this was a case that drew wide public attention. And the fact that the High Court overturned the state court decision, I think it really demonstrated that Singapore courts are not influenced by status or power or citizenship of the parties to a dispute. And even a foreign domestic worker with limited means could receive a fair hearing, and ultimately justice was done.
Thank you, Shem. Let me bring in Aloysius now. And because of your area of focus and having founded Sage Mediation and reading about your background, in fact, in our interactions with you in your offices, you know, at Sage Mediation, getting to know your role in the mediation, you know, architecture in Singapore, you must have have had a long practice in mediation in Singapore. It's one aspect that contributes to the attraction. How long have you been doing this?
Without saying too much about my age, I would say more than 20 years, and we'll leave it there. Yeah.
So, what initially drew you to mediation, and how has your practice evolved over time?
What drew me to mediation? That is a very long story, but suffice to say that I think I'm at heart a problem solver, and when I was in law school, I struggled with the adversarial nature of common law, and I think I was.
And sorry for our viewers watching, that's the Supreme Court building of Singapore, about a nice story with about 20 different courts, you know, very modern, and has all the, call it the digital architecture right in there. They make provision for media right in each courtroom. Yes, Aloysius, please continue.
And just to add onto the building, the Chief Justice and all the top judges are all in the UFO that's right on top. We always wonder whether it can take off, but I don't think it can. But anyway, to come back, so I think I was looking for a way to use my legal training to find solutions that would work out for the long term for everyone who is involved. I think too often disputes happen because actually everyone has contributed a little bit to it, or it's a third force outside, and I think we've seen a lot of that in the recent years. The pandemic being the most stark. There's been, I mean, in my work now, there are so many disputes from commercial to employment to family disputes whose origins are from that period from 2020 to 2022 when everyone's lives and livelihoods were thrown into great disarray. And the law is just not designed to deal with such unanticipated mass disruptions. And yeah, so I think where my work has changed a lot is that definitely when I first graduated, and I did try. I interviewed with a few law firms, but mediators were not well regarded as a profession. There weren't many of us, right? And I think mediation was not so entrenched in the Singapore legal system and the Singapore justice system. But today it's become very, very widely used.
Yes.
And my practice has evolved with that.
Tell us about that. How is mediation, you know, properly entrenched and formalized and, you know, widely used as a popular form of dispute resolution, which the world knows is one of the attractions?
Well, I think today, lawyers are aware that when they file a dispute on the client's behalf in court, one of the first questions that is going to be asked to them by the registry, by the judges, is, have your clients tried mediation? And are your clients going to try mediation? I think the question has changed from, is your client prepared to try, to when is your client going to try mediation? There is now a very strong assumption that they must attempt it. And this question is now floated at nearly every stage of the trial process, from the first time that you file to before hearings, and sometimes after the hearings, just before judgments are out. And I have also done quite a few cases where it's post judgment, and because one side has said we want to appeal, the registry has also said, well, if you want to appeal it, go send it for mediation again, go try mediation again. So mediation is happening all the time, right? And for all kinds of cases. I think in the early days, we experimented, as many jurisdictions do, first with family cases and with low value civil cases. But in today's atmosphere, I think the SIMC just announced at the Singapore Convention Week that their largest dispute was $8 billion. I also just had a mediation that involved seven different parties, seven law firms, three of which were out of Singapore. So we are dealing with much more complicated matters coming for mediation today, and this is because, number one, the courts are pushing for it. Number two, the lawyers have become very supportive. I maybe just want to segue here to always highlight that when many different jurisdictions come to visit Singapore and they see how much mediation is used, the temptation is to imagine that this can be transferred into their jurisdiction, and it can happen overnight. And I have to remind them that this was a journey that took us the better part of 30 years, that was very, very strategically incepted by the Chief Justices, right, and by the different ministers for law, and also by our law society. It took a while to help the judges and the lawyers change their mindset, and now collectively we are working to change society's mindset towards mediation, and our ability to work collectively. I think that is what has made Singapore's experience very, very unique.
Right. In Ghana, we have what we call the court-connected ADR. We passed a law in 2010 to support mediated resolution of cases. But in 2004, we provided, as part of our rules, for a mandatory pretrial mediation for commercial cases. How does Singapore's approach differ? I know you have scaled up to the International Mediation Center, as you just referred to, which deals with matters even beyond the jurisdiction of Singapore.
So, I must admit that my research into Ghana told me about where your mediation legislation is at right now. I'm not sure how you evolved it to this stage. I can share that for Singapore, we only started giving judges the power to order mediations, the power to mandate mediations, sometime last year. It took us a while before we moved to mandate, and we were careful about it. And I say this having been CEO of SIMC, and having been a big part of the ministry's strategic thought, the government's strategic thought to how to grow mediation use. And I know when we first started, when we were trying to create the SIMC, as well as our Mediation Act, we studied many different jurisdictions, and we did consider mandating mediation. But we were also clear, having seen the experience of other jurisdictions, that if you mandate mediation, when your lawyers are not ready, when your mediators, the pool of professional, well-trained mediators are not ready, then chances are your mediations will have very, very poor experiences and outcomes. And and so we started by moving first from an opt-in model, so parties can choose to mediate. We took 5 years there. Then we moved to opt-out. Parties have to give reasons not to mediate. And then it took us another 10 years before we actually moved to mandate mediation. And I think that is the secret to our Mediation Act's success, that we gave the ground sufficient time for the practice uh, to really mature and the mindsets to change, so that today, if when parties are forced to come for mediation, chances are they're quite okay with it because the lawyers know how to support them, and the mediators are also able to help them achieve good outcomes, and so that they don't resent having been ordered by the court to go for mediation. Yep.
Right. What learning would you like a country like us to take from the Singapore International Mediation Center, or mediation generally, to engender business? You attempted to hint at that a bit, but help focus it for me. What are some of the learnings you think we can take?
I always tell my friends that when the years I spent as the SIMC CEO were difficult years, so far as we had to really change mindsets. And what I learned was that definitely having a strong international mediation center, strong in terms of a diverse and clearly skilled panel of mediators, transparent, accessible mediation rules, professional case managers who can respond within 12 hours to any inquiry, good facilities that work. You don't have Wi-Fi that drops, you don't have toilets that are clogged, you have rooms where the air conditioning can be trusted to function 24 hours. I think those are basic. As much as we think that is already difficult, those are basic. What, in my mind, really helped SIMC succeed, and I don't take away from the government from investing in all of the above that I've listed, was really the quality of the talent that Singapore had. That, if we didn't have lawyers who were open to this and who were supportive of mediation, if we didn't have mediators who had a 20-year runway getting ready before the SIMC was launched, all that wouldn't have worked and wouldn't have helped Singapore to really position ourselves as a hub for disputes, not just from the region, but from the whole of Asia and all around the world, to come and trust us to get the job done for you.
So, as one of the foundation leaders of the Singapore International Mediation Center, the question on my mind is, how does a country, set up and dream that you will set up a mediation center looking at, transnational business, not just to take care of, mediating cases within the country?
I think Singaporeans are dreamers. To have a country the way that we are in our size, we dream. But more than dreamers, you have visited us. Our government and our people have been trained as economists. We are very, very data driven. And what really drove us to set up the SIMC back in 2014 was that the government did a very detailed international research, and we realized that Asia was going to be receiving about $1 trillion US dollars of infrastructure investment a year. This was in 2014. And 80% of that was going to come to Southeast Asia. And we also recognized then that when economic activity increases, disputes are going to come. And we need a place to resolve these disputes if we want those foreign investments to translate to real economic development and progress. So it was a very calculated, strategic move. It was not just a pipe dream, but we saw that there was going to be this need, and we saw that we were uniquely placed with our transport, our access, our connectivities, our visa-free travels, one of the best passports in the world and the most accessible airports and seaports in the world. And we said this is the way that Singapore can value add.
Great.
So SIMC was not just a dream. It was very calculated.
Right. In addition to the SIMC, and I'm coming to Shem now, you set up the Singapore International Arbitration Center, and it's also become such a global attraction. Last year alone, over 600 cases, were handled by this center, and the majority of these cases, as I interacted, the Ghanaian lawyers who were there interacted with the officials at the at the Singapore International Arbitration Center. The majority of these cases did not involve parties who were within Singapore. Shem, as one who is involved in, maritime law and so on, what, again, will you say is the global attraction for this arbitration center in Singapore?
Samson, I think to understand Singapore's rise to be a major player in the international arbitration space, one must look back at the historical role that Singapore played in the world and not just look at the legal system in isolation. We must recall that historically, Singapore was the meeting point for East and West, for traders from all over the world. They converged here because of our strategic location to trade. And when you have that history and coupled with a very committed government to create a system that is free of corruption, to create a judiciary that is internationally respected, then you will understand why Singapore has become a choice destination for dispute resolution. So I think historically, countries, international players were very comfortable to come to Singapore to trade. And when Singapore then intentionally developed its professional services, and in this case, we are talking about its legal services, and provides the infrastructure for dispute resolution. We have top-class facilities, top-class hearing rooms, a great airport. The roads are great. It's convenient to be here. And when you have a judiciary that actively supports arbitration, it is no surprise that it followed that international parties chose Singapore because they knew that they could come to Singapore to be a jurisdiction that is arbitration friendly, and where you have a judiciary that's highly regarded and an institution that has global credibility. So I think SIAC's rise is a testament to the trust that parties around the world have placed in Singapore.
Right. So I'm going to take a quick break. I'll return. I'll get to have their final concluding comments. But when I return, I go to Kohe to find out a few things from her as she doubling up as the honorary consul for Ghana in Singapore, is trying to convince businesses, to come to this country. What is it that, she's looking at? We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is The Law. It's your legal light. It is your help law. And my guests on the show are Shem, Aloysius, and Kohi. Now, I go to Kohi. And Kohi, I'd like to find out from you, what is it about the legal regime in Ghana that provides comfort for Asian businesses as you convince, business owners to come invest in Ghana?
Thanks very much, Samson. As I mentioned earlier on, I think there's a lot of likeness between the Singapore legal system and the Ghanaian legal system. Both systems are very much influenced by its British history. And like the Singapore legal system as well, apart from the focus on the court system, there's also other forms of ADR that's very much a key part of the dispute resolution mechanism. You've got arbitration, you've got mediation, and a lot of Asian users are very familiar already with the Singapore legal system and dispute resolution mechanism. So likewise, that element of familiarity, you can bring that over for them to also understand and accept the Ghanaian legal system.
What has been the response to the president's promise to change our GIPC law to remove the minimum capital investment quotas? When we were with you, we had the opportunity to interact with some business owners, and this was at the top of our minds, some of the things we felt will encourage business owners to want to come to Ghana.
The short answer to that, Samson, is fantastic reception. I think, probably 2 days or 3 days after the session that we had when you were in Singapore, that was when President Mahama announced in Japan on the proposed amendment to the GIPC Act. And I received quite a lot of inquiries from businesses wanting to know what that entails. And interestingly, quite a number of these businesses are what I would say your small and medium-sized enterprises, which would not be hindered overly by having a huge capital investment having to be made when you go into a new market like Ghana. The other interesting thing was when President Mahama was in town, we organized a Singapore-Ghana Business Forum. Initially, it was meant to be only limited to about 15 to 20 Singapore businesses, but we kept receiving a lot of requests, a lot of inquiries, so much so that we opened it up to a much wider audience. We opened it up to actually about 100 businesses. And I must say, actually, we received more than 150 registrants, and we effectively had to put a stop and say that, we could only take in 150 businesses. That announcement was made on a Tuesday afternoon. The event was supposed to be held on a Thursday morning, and yet we received such fantastic response. So to me, President Mahama's announcement and just the general optimism, frankly, towards investments in Africa and in Ghana is huge, in Singapore as well as various parts of Asia.
Thank you. And this is the point where on this program we will take just a couple of questions. Today you will appreciate that why we opened the phone lines a bit late. So I'm going to see if I can take about 3 questions or quick contributions. So join us. As always, the phone lines are advertised on the screens. And I understand joining us via Zoom first is Agbenu. Hey, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Great. Let's hear you.
Yes. Sorry, I will join early. But I appreciate the fact that put this program together. That's a very innovative of you. And I also thank your panelists so far. That's
Agbenu's line is breaking.
Line is breaking.
Yeah, you're okay now. You can go on. Please go on.
All right. So I want to ask a question.
Go on with your question.
Yes. Highest.
Oh, too bad. Okay. So let's do this with a very little time left. If you could look at the phone number on the screen and call directly on that line, it might be better. Thank you very much. So who do we have again? Let's be straight about it. Let's have your question. Aziz Mumuni, go ahead with your question.
Hello.
Go ahead with your question, Aziz.
Hello.
Aziz, we can hear you. Go ahead. Oh, that's bad. I don't know what's happening to the phone lines. If we can quickly resolve that. Hello, Asari. Hello, Asari.
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
So my question is, yes, I want to go on straight to my question. So looking at how their courts are structured and the faith people have in their court, are they skeptical about how our courts are run, or what advice would they? I don't know whether they heard anything about courts and whether or not they would like to advise or contribute in any way to help our courts get to their level.
All right, thanks for that question. I'll take one or two more, and then I'll just go straight to have my guest answer your question. Hello, Daniel, you're calling from Accra. What's your question?
Oh, yeah. Hello, Brother Samson. God bless you. I like the program.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, my question is that what I'm seeing, the botanical garden that you show on the program, can we eliminate something like that in Ghana?
Right, we definitely can emulate that. All right, thank you. Who's next? Hussein. Right, Hussein must be Edward Hussein Abugri. Hi, let's hear you, Edward. Okay, Edward, we don't seem to have your attention. Can you go ahead and ask your question quickly? All right. Meanwhile, the phone lines are jammed, and yet we can't seem to get you pay attention. All right. So let me go to my guest and see. So I throw the question from Asari to any one of you who wants to pick it up, Shem, Aloysius, or Kohi. Asari in Accra is asking the question whether you think that Asians will have as much trust in the Ghanaian legal system as they have in the Singapore legal system, and if there's any piece of advice. Any one of you, lady and gentlemen.
Not an easy question to answer, but I think my sentiments are these. I think the trust given to Singapore it's largely because people believe that in Singapore, not just the government, but people in general in Singapore do not like corruption. So I think that is something that is so important, and if there's something that I would say any country who wants to build efficient and internationally regarded judiciary or legal system, that country needs to strive to wipe out corruption across the board.
Thank you very much, Shem. And let me do this.
Samson,
yes, Kohi.
do you mind if I just add on to what
Yes.
Shem has said?
Yes, Kohi.
I think it doesn't, this kind of things does not happen overnight. You can't just, build the trust overnight. But in my experience, when I was a lawyer and working in emerging markets, what I found very helpful is in the initial years, at least, parties tend to contract for arbitration. And I think that, to me, is a bit of a midpoint between going to the court system and having more of an international regime. And I think once you've gotten your arbitration award and then you get that probably enforced in Ghana, you go through the Ghana court systems, and then slowly then that you build your trust that way. And I think, Ghana being also a member state of the New York Convention on Arbitration, I think definitely helps from that perspective.
All right. Aloysius, want to say anything? As for the question about the viewer who was seeing the botanical garden, about whether we can replicate that in Ghana, we will deal with that by ourselves. Yes, Aloysius.
Well, I want to answer the question straight, right? Whether Ghana can be as trusted as Singapore. And my answer is 100% yes, right? Ghana can do it. I've only met, after I met your group, I met one more, so I met 8 Ghanaians in my life so far. And using that sample size, I would say no reason why you can't do it. But I agree with Kohi. It's going to take time, starting from today. And if everyone works hard at it, trust is something which is built. It's never, the answer is never no, right? And if you want to do it, it can be done extremely quickly, but not overnight.
All right. Thank you so very much. For those of you who are seeking to call us now, unfortunately, I'm unable to pick your calls. But Abeku, you have been on for too long. Hello, Abeku, can we hear you in just some 30 seconds? Okay. Abeku and Yao, I'm sorry we are unable to pick your calls at this time. All I'll do now is to say very, very thankful to you, Shem Ko, Managing Director, Focus Law Asia, Aloysius Go, Founder Sage Mediations, Kohi Hassan, co-founder and CEO, M Capital Asia, Honorary Consul for the Republic of Ghana in Singapore. Thank you all so very much. Have a good afternoon. This has been The Law. It's your legal light. It is your help law.